I think we'll get started. So hello, everyone. You're all very welcome to this session of Talking Towns, which is a seminar series run by the UCD Centre for Irish Towns in conjunction with the UCD Earth Institute. So this topic, the topic for today is on transport and mobility in Irish towns, which is one of many of these seminar series we have within the UCD Irish Town Centre for Irish Towns, which is really the series aims to spark conversations about the challenges facing Irish towns, the opportunities they offer, and the role of research and policy in bringing about revitalisation in towns in Ireland in particular. So this series started back in October 21 and runs over the academic year. So we have another one scheduled for December, and we'll have a couple more next year as well. But essentially, these series, they offer an opportunity for speakers from academia to policymaking and civil society to come together to discuss these topics that affect Irish towns. And I'm delighted to be joined today by three wonderful speakers who will be each speaking about different areas of mobility and transport in Irish towns from different perspectives. And I'll introduce them individually in a second, but just to let you know that this session will be recorded and will be uploaded subsequently onto the UCD Centre for Irish Towns YouTube site. And if you have any questions throughout the session, please pop them into the chat box and outline who this question is for, if it's for all three speakers. So just to provide a brief overview of this topic. So, as we know, decarbonisation is a major challenge in urban areas as well as rural areas. But I suppose as topic today is looking at rural areas, in particular in Irish towns and villages. Rural societies are undergoing very dynamic change as a result of a mix of locals, incomers, visitors. At different times of the year, there's a lot of change happening and changes in mindsets in particular. And mobility and transport in particular is undergoing rapid change in how we approach this topic in rural areas perspectives. So a lot of recent reports have examined rural area mobility and innovations, and the ITF had a nice quote saying rural areas may be peripheral, or using other such terms as outlying or marginal to city dwellers, but to rural communities, these areas are the centre of their worlds. So in their worlds, their town is their everything. So, they will other interventions that are applicable to urban areas can be retrofitted perhaps to rural areas where there equally is a massive challenge to encourage behaviour change in transport, but also bring about the infrastructural and technological changes needed to facilitate that. So the recent report from the OECD looking at redesigning Ireland's transport system for net zero mentioned that reducing car dependency to the same extent in urban areas will most likely be unfeasible to some extent, but certainly possible through the interventions such as road space reallocation, shared mobility services such as demand responsive transport, volunteer or station-based car sharing, and peer-to-peer ride sharing and bike sharing. And of course, there's also and should be scope for EV subsidies for private car use. So the innovations and the type of work that's going on in this area of transport mobility in Irish towns is the topic for today. And our first speaker will be Dr. Fatemeh Golpayegani, who is Assistant Professor in the School of Computer Science at University College Dublin. Fatemeh's topic will be speaking today on the topic of why shared mobility services are important and how AI can enhance the quality of such services. And Fatemeh leads the Multi-Agent Systems and Sustainable Solutions Research Group, and her research interests include artificial intelligence and the application of this in smart city context. She also is a co-PI on a Horizon Europe project called Augmented, Connected and Cooperative Automated Mobility, and a coordinator of another EU-funded project called Reroute, which is looking at integrating intelligent multimodal transport infrastructure. Our second speaker then will be Finola O'Driscoll, who is a senior program manager at the National Transport Authority. And Finola's topic for today will be the Safer Roads to Schools program. And Finola has 20 years of experience working as a transport planner and a program manager with a background in civil engineering and urban planning. She works to create streets people can enjoy, where active and sustainable transport is an easy choice. Her career highlights include establishing the Smarter Travel Workplace program, the Safer Routes to School program, which will be the topic of today, and the National Real-Time Passenger Information program. Finola also works with local authorities to deliver walking and cycling infrastructure. Behaviour science informs her approach to helping local authorities deliver these often controversial projects. And she helps deliver greenways, protected cycle tracks, school streets and school zones, alongside pedestrian and urban improvement schemes around the country. And then finally, we have Sarah Togher, who is a manager of Mayo Community Transport, the Transport for Ireland Local Link services in Mayo. And Sarah's topic for today will be looking at TFI Local Link Mayo, creating sustainable solutions to connect people and places. And Sarah's main role since joining Local Link Mayo in 2018 involves leading the strategic vision of the company in the areas of governance, innovation, and collaboration. This involves working with the Local Link team, stakeholders, and funding partners in the implementation of actions and initiatives. At present, the role is heavily focused on working with the National Transport Authority on the implementation of the Connecting Ireland initiative. And Connecting Ireland aims to improve mobility in rural areas by providing better connections between villages and towns, by linking these areas with enhanced regional network connecting cities and regional centres nationwide. And planning the many new routes under Connecting Ireland as well is well underway, and Mayo recent upgrades have resulted in significant increases in connectivity. And finally, Sarah's significant expertise and experience in the community and rural development sector shines through in this, and she holds a MSc in Business Leadership Development from NUI Galway. So without further ado, I'll hand over now to our first speaker, which is Fatemeh. So as I said, if you have any questions throughout, please do pop them into the chat box and mention who the question is for. So over to you, Fatemeh. Thank you.
Thanks, Paraic. I'm trying to share my screen, so should be shared now. You must be seeing my screen right now, right?
Yep, perfect.
All right. So thanks so much, Paraic, for the very nice introduction, and thank you all for attending today. So today, as Paraic mentioned, I will be talking about why shared mobility services are important, first of all, and how AI can enhance the quality of such services. So let's have a look at where we are currently. Paraic already talked about a little bit about decarbonisation objectives of the EU and Ireland in general, but apart from decarbonisation and all of those environmental goals, I think there are other numbers that we have to look at as well, right? And those numbers don't lie. If you look at this graph, in 2020 only, there were around 18,800 persons were killed in road accidents, right? So apart from decarbonisation, it's the death toll that we are talking about here. And 44.2% of all of these fatalities were car drivers or passengers who were sitting in the car, and 19.2% were pedestrians. So it's quite a bit of death toll that we have here. So if we look at these numbers again in this graph, we can see how much we have even in Ireland here based on the map, that if you can look at this, like the vehicle occupant death is the most is the biggest number in these statistics. So moving forward, it's not just the death toll we are talking about here, it's the cost as well. And this cost includes accidents, air pollution, climate, and noise, well to tank, and habitat damage, right? So it's the full cost we are looking at here. And as we can see here, again, the cars and driving in cars is most responsible for all of these categories that are there. And still, cars are taking over the roads, and we are seeing still the increase in using cars compared to other modes of transport that are available to us. So that's where we are, right? And the question is then next where we would like to go, or where we would like to be. According to EU Mobility Strategy and Action Plan, we would like to have a more sustainable mobility, which means that a reversible shift to zero emission mobility, as was mentioned by Paraic. We would like to have a smart mobility, which is achieving seamless, safe, and efficient connectivity throughout the mobility network that we have. We would like to have resilient mobility, which is able to cope and adapt with different changes that happens in the environment and different plans that are happening in the cities and all. So we would like it to be resilient, and the EU as a world connectivity hub. That's the ultimate goal that we want to get into. So I would like to focus on two things in this talk. First is the intelligent transport systems and how innovative solutions can shape the mobility of passengers and freight in the future, and how intelligent transport system can make these can put us in a place that we can achieve these objectives a little bit better, right? In all of these discussions, we are talking about technology taking over, AI, machine learning, use of data and all. And one part that we sometimes forget to talk about is the acceptance of all of these solutions, and the public and social acceptance, which would be the key for a successful transition towards all of these solutions. So I'll get to these points when I go forward. And the second one is the smart mobility. So what is a smart mobility in this context? So it's a big umbrella. Let's imagine it's like a big umbrella that it includes multiple concepts and multiple solutions here. And to give a few examples of this would be connected, cooperative, and automated mobility would be one of them. Integration of transport modes into functioning multimodal system, like having sort of public transport and being connected to private transport, and shared mobility at the other side, and so on. And planning and purchasing tickets for multimodal journeys. So ticketing and connecting hubs would be another aspect of smart mobility. And efficient capacity allocation and traffic management. Okay, we have these shared mobility, how we are going to manage the demand, right? And the transport system interoperability. These are only a few topics in this whole big umbrella that needs to be addressed. So the next question is that how we would like to get there and how to get there. Designing intelligent transport ecosystem requires a lot of topics to be covered simultaneously. It's not like we address for example, ticketing system, and we can say that, okay, we have a good system in place. No, if we do not know the mobility pattern, how a ticketing system could be used in an efficient way, right? So it's a system that everything is linked and everything has to be looked after at the same time simultaneously. So some of these would be, as you can see here in this figure, we need to have the computational infrastructure, we need to have the communication infrastructure, we need to have a good and transparent data analysis system in place, and the ability to communicate in ultra low latency capacity to be able to make decisions on the fly. So the challenges that we face in such systems are the amount of data that is generated, right? The data that is coming from different modes of transport, the mobility of of different modes of transport, and the people's need and planning of such towns and cities. The communication is the next challenge that we always face. Like, how are we going to communicate all of these data? How are they going to be managed? The unpredictable behavior is another thing. Like, human beings are unpredictable in nature. Like, it doesn't matter how much we say and we rely on the historical data, we need to always account for unpredictability here. Real-time decision-making is needed, definitely, and constrained resources that we have. We are always pressed by the amount of data we have, the short amount of time that we have to process that data to be able to make decisions, and privacy is a big issue there, and latency requirements. So what are the enablers here? Big data technology, IoT, WOT, communication technology with 5G and beyond 5G, and the technologies such as edge and computing at the edge are the enablers that will help us to get there. So the progress to date, as Paraic mentioned, I have a research group that is focusing on these matters. Obviously, we are not addressing all of these challenges, but we have already touched on some of the challenges that I have already mentioned. So the challenges we are looking at are multimodal data, dynamic goal generation to address the unpredictable behavior of a different aspect of the system, normative behavior modeling to take into account the people and the society idea and understanding of these solutions. Ontology modeling to understand, okay, if we have a legacy system in place and how we can link that legacy system with the new system we design. And AI at the edge is another technology we have looked at to be able to understand or to enable us to process data at the place that it is generated. So just looking at it quickly, I know that I don't have much time here. Multimodal data, why do we think multimodal data is important? So imagine a system that you have in place, right? And you want the shared mobility to happen, but you need to have to be able to plan for these shared mobility services that you are offering. And you have access to multiple sources of data from the sensors on the road, from the mobile apps that your passengers have, from the traffic cameras and all. And all of these different types of data are giving you some sort of information, right? And if you put all of these modes together, you would be able to make better decisions and better informed decisions. How machine learning can help? Well, in various ways, in several ways, but the important thing that machine learning can help us is on-the-fly decision-making, right? So we are not just looking at historical data here. We need to be able to make decisions on the fly because we are talking about traffic systems. And as you can see, and as we all know, everything moves fast in this system, right? And the unpredictability characteristics of this environment is huge. So we cannot really underestimate how much impact it can make on our decisions that might be on the historical data. So the dynamic and partially observable environment we are talking about, and non-determinism in these environments. So machine learning and technically unsupervised machine learning could be used and is used in these areas, and we have shown that it can have some impact here. So another type of AI techniques that is used in these areas is normative behavior modeling and normative systems. So I mentioned about we need users and the society to accept what we are going to propose as a technology solution, right? And that's where the norms come into the game, and how we are going to model these norms and how we can take into account what our users want, right? So either it would be in a traffic modeling system or a shared mobility system, it doesn't matter. We need to take into account what our users need. So in these kind of systems, what we use is a simulation modeling, and we model the agents, the users as agents who have who have their own norms, and we model the objective of the system as well to have a smooth shared mobility system. But having a smooth shared mobility system where our users are not really happy with it wouldn't really be a solution, right? So with normative multi-agent system, we take all of those user preferences and user behavior as norms of the system, and we integrate them into the objective of the system so that everybody is happy with the solution that is offered at the end. So I don't go through the details of the results there, but I'm happy to discuss at a later stage maybe. And the last one that I want to talk about is AI at the edge. This is another kind of very emerging technology that we are seeing right now, that, as I mentioned, data is a big challenge. Having it is a big challenge, right? And not having it is a challenge as well. But even if you imagine that we have all of that data in the context of shared mobility and transport systems, that would be a huge amount of data. And if we want to transfer all of that data to the cloud and want to process that there and come back from the cloud with some decision, that the decision that is made at that point doesn't make any sense, because the system is moving so fast, right? And if you're waiting for if you're asking from an app to tell you, okay, which bus you should take, you wouldn't wait for 5 minutes for that app to come back to you, right? You will need an instant answer, and this is even more in place when you have multiple modes of transport at the same time, and you have ride sharing, Uber, public transport and everything. And when all of these things could be linked together, then the response time has to be decreased even more. So what happens here is that at the AI at the edge, what happens is that we will have computational resources placed near to you, and we will compute all of those answers locally with a global image of what is happening in the system, but with the data that is produced in the local areas. So this way, we will have low latency solutions. We have preserved privacy, not a single system at the cloud knows you as a single person where you want to go and what is your preferences. We wouldn't be sharing all of those data with the cloud, and we will be giving you very ultra low latency, based on all ultra low latency solutions. So I try to keep to the time. I don't know how I did, but that's all. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm obviously be more than happy to take any questions after this.
Thank you very much, Fatemeh. Lots of food for thought there, and lots of interesting innovations that I think could be very much applicable to Irish towns. So yeah, I have a couple of questions for you, but we'll come back at the end for the Q&A if that's okay.
Sure.
We'll now move on to the second speaker, which is Finola O'Driscoll. So Finola, whenever you're ready, and up to you.
Mute. Yeah, can you
Great.
see my screen, Paraic?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, and it's a present mode.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, great to talk to you. Usually I have to tell a bunch of architects that I'm an engineer and a planner, and therefore they're arch nemesis, but hopefully we'll find a common ground here. It's not safe roads to school, that's for sure. It's safe routes to school, and I suppose we've been working with schools in the NTA for over a decade, trying to promote sustainable, particularly active travel, and the Safe Routes to School program is coming in on the back of a behaviour change program that's run by Green Schools Travel, coming in with infrastructure investments. So let's see, is it moving down? Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you why school travel is so important to our communities, our towns, villages, and what the Safe Routes to School program is, what it has to offer. And then I'm going to fly through some case studies. So there's quite a lot of slides, but hopefully I'll get through in time because it's just pictures. And yeah, why do school travel need attention? Well, I probably worked with over a couple of thousand schools over my career in the NTA, and every school thinks they're unique in the traffic problems that are outside their schools in the morning and twice in the afternoon. They're not. This is the case absolutely everywhere throughout the country. I'd say one or two exceptions double parking, hoof your SUV up on the footpath. Best of luck to everybody. Try and get to as near to the door, especially on a wet morning, as you can. And look, the result is incredibly dangerous, as recognised by the Chief Executive of the Road Safety Authority. It's not particularly civil. It's definitely not a nice place to be as a pedestrian, as a child, which everyone is when they leave the car. And yeah, it's problematic, and it does choke up a lot of our towns and villages. So what else? Well, as Fatemeh alluded to, road safety is a big issue. The number one, outside of infancy, the number one cause of death for children is accidents, and road traffic accidents is the number one cause of accidents. Air quality is an issue. It estimated to kill about 1,300 or cause 1,300 premature deaths in Ireland, and we all know what we've been through to reduce premature deaths. And children are particularly susceptible to issues with air quality because their lungs are developing, plus they're actually nearer to the exhaust fumes in a lot of cases. This graph is a telling one. Since 1996, you can kind of see the swap over between car traffic, which is on this is how primary school children get to school. Car traffic is the yellow line, so 60% currently. Hopefully it's a bit less, it might be a bit more. This is from the census 2016. 60% of our children are driven to school, our primary school children, and self-propelled transport has taken a dramatic reduction. This is not commensurate. A lot of people think maybe, well, are people traveling further? That's not the case. It's a social change. And while I would like to maybe distinguish, Paraic talked about urban and rural areas, but the definition of an urban area with the CSO is actually a village, anyone that lives within a town or village of 1,500 people. So maybe we talk about towns and villages versus cities, maybe that kind of, I think urban and rural, we think of ourselves as a rural country, but actually 70% of our population live within towns, villages and cities. And I know it's the towns and area that you're all particularly interested in. So maybe we do start talking about towns and villages and cities rather than urban and rural, and maybe that will actually help in thinking about how we can develop sustainable futures. So yeah, in a primary, the average distance to primary school in the urban area, and that's towns, villages, over 1,500 people, is less than 1 kilometre, and the average distance to secondary school in our towns and villages and cities, 1.4 kilometres, eminently walkable, if not cyclable distances. And the urban area is defined by DMERS, which you're all familiar with, as 60 kph. Yeah, so environment, congestion and health, look, it's pretty, we've just come out of a pandemic, but there's still an epidemic out there of obesity. And that is the official term. 1 in 5 primary school children are overweight or obese, and kids need actually 60 minutes exercise a day versus the 30 minutes that adults need. So, you know, they really need to be out there walking and cycling in their everyday life to clock that up. And 8 out of 10 primary school children and 9 out of 10 secondary school children don't meet that. So there's other special design considerations near schools, you know, visibility, space. It is where people come together. Social interaction and play is really important. So we were looking at designing the spaces outside schools as places where communities can come together. And obviously we're looking for healthy, safe environments. So yeah, this is kind of what we're looking for, moving from congested, the tightest space on the road, in the carriageway from building line to building line, usually given to people to swap that around, and to have a good balance of mobility and activity. So we trialed a lot of these fun and playful schools during COVID, and I hope I'm not offending too many aesthetic sensibilities here. They were kind of quick interventions, and the pencil-shaped bollards went down well as a bit of maybe practical street art. This is a school in Sandymount, and cars were parked up on the footpath. You couldn't get past it with your buggies or on your bikes or in your wheelchair. So they were kind of practical and needed. And then in order to kind of outline that this was a special place, we had these colourful circles on the road, and the school then asked the parents not to drop off in that zone so that it was a much safer zone. We developed from those places. We worked with architects, landscape architects, people, behavior scientists, a whole great group of multidisciplinary people to come up with a design guide, which kind of brought that initial design. It has this lot few into kind of its next evolution with more greening, more aesthetically sensitive options for ACAs, etc. And you know, it's building on DEMERS and it's building on the National Cycle Manual, and it's available on the NTA website. So we had things like Monaster Evan, some ideas of what it could look like. So yeah, there's kind of, as part of the school zone, so these are the areas outside schools where we're trying to protect, keep those interest, you know, keep it as a special place where communities can gather, that it's safer, that it's not, people aren't doing U-turns right where, you know, hundreds of children are converging. So there's various elements, including loads of different options in the design guide, lots and lots of different types of options. But the template really looks at a school banner. Instead of adding signage, we were just going to kind of use the signage that was there for school ahead, but maybe have a color themed sleeve on the pole to bring in the kind of specialness of the place. Yeah, the circles are still an option, but in many cases buff surfacing could be an option, a better option. And yeah, a bit of traffic management in terms of speed ramps and zebra crossings, pedestrian crossings, or raised informal crossings. And then also to put in some color themed furniture, so that, you know, people, parents or guardians, or during the day, anybody in the community that's walking past the school can use the space and sit and talk. And I'll show you some pictures of when you do give space back outside schools, how many people can gather. So the program, we invited principals and schools to apply, and we got an overwhelming response. So 930 schools applied. That's a quarter of the schools in the country, and the call out was during COVID, so you can imagine how busy principals were at the time, but such was the thirst and hunger for a change in their front of school environments and the links to school, that they did manage to apply. We're working with schools all across. We're working with 170 of these actively, and we're going to bring all the rest of them into the program over the years. And as you can see, there's a great spread across Ireland. Just to say, I suppose the average distance to primary school, as I said, is 1.5 in an urban area, towns, villages, cities, and it's 2.4 in a rural area. So there's still a lot of potential for for active mobility to schools, even in non-towns, villages and cities. So what the program works with, obviously the principals have applied, so that we're working with the willing a bit. There's teams of within An Taisce's Green Schools program. There's a new unit called the Safe Routes to School program, and there's infrastructure officers. There's 6 of those working across the country. They meet up with local engineers, the principals, various other stakeholders like bus drivers and companies, and they assess the as-is situation. They get loads of data. They put out GIS surveys to the school. That's, you know, obviously goes out from the principal, and you get information back about where people are living. A lot of times we find there's a lot more people living within 1 and 2 kilometers than the principal ever thought, which is great. That's a mandate for change. They do some GIS mapping. They do areas of parental, you know, concern. What's the issues? It usually turns out to be 1 or 2 main roads that are barriers, or places where there's no crossings that are the problems. So they collect all this data. They give the local authority communications toolkit on how to communicate the plans when they're drawn up. But and then from all of that data, they derive a delivery plan. So it's kind of a concept idea of all the various interventions that could be done to help children walk and cycle to school, as well as the front of school environment, the school zone. I'm going to skip this one. This is some of the testimonials from Dublin City Council, but I'll go more towards the I'll go more towards some other areas. So this is a school street that just recently opened in Limerick. Yeah, a school street actually means that for the time, for about 3/4 of an hour in the morning and the afternoon, the street is closed to all traffic. So you can see before and after. And it is a real, we hope, a very much a addition to the whole of the city, to the fabric of the city, this more colourful, enjoyable space. And this was before and after. I mean, you couldn't really make it up. It was, you know, guardrail, people just stopping to try and get out. If you were caught between, I mean, your kids are getting out, but they're in danger of the next car pulling up too close, and they're going to squish by the guardrail. And this is what it looked like afterwards. And Limerick isn't a city with a high mode share for cycling, but given the opportunity, people do take, are happy to walk and cycle to school. Here's one in Blanchardstown. I know it's not exactly town and village, but it's on a distributor road, one of those 9-meter wide distributor roads that is plenty. There's plenty of them in our towns and villages and our suburbs. And again, we just kind of transformed the area. There's a cycle lane the whole length of that distributor road, now 5 kilometers on both sides, protected. There's rain gardens, there's just a much more, took down the guardrail, put in the zebra cross and made it a lot more inviting for kids to come to school. And it is a much safer environment. I was out there on a visit with Fingal County Council, and some people came up and said, "Are you from the council?" That usually doesn't bode well. A lot if you work in a council, it's not something that you tend to answer. So this is the best thing that's happened here in ages. Like this man that didn't look like he was about to give us a compliment, and it was brilliant. And here's one in Ramelton and Donegal that's underway. So this is outside the school, you know, your usual kind of swathes of tarmac and drop off. A lot going on there, not the safest environment. Hard to see where you'd be able to walk and cross that road safely. But the school has been part of the Safe Routes to School programme. They've had a draft delivery plan outlining some of the things that they could do. The council has taken this on and has derived quite a lot of, is out to part 8 at the moment, or maybe it's just finished, with lots of changes around improving walking and cycling infrastructure, tightening up junctions, putting in crossings. I mean, this area you could do a lot with. They are at least tightening it up, a bit more planting, making it a bit more civilized and not so easy to take that corner at 80 kph. And this is one of the plans that's coming in. So it's a Safe Routes to School plan, but you can see how much of a difference it's going to make to the village. It's not without, none of these schemes are without their challenges, because you're changing people's behavior, you're changing priority from those who have it to those who don't. So it's a big shift. And we would, every single one has issues, but that's why the data gathering exercise at the start is really important. And just to quickly, just showing these, we're doing some scheme trials as well. This is a school street. The difference between school zone and school street is school street is a bit of a heavier intervention in that traffic for drop off and collection times is restricted on the street outside the schools. This is one in Tramore, and you can just see how many people are gathered and kind of even the informal conversations that are happening. Like, we haven't done anything in infrastructure here. This is just a trial. If it's successful and it lasts, we'll be able to put in some seating and planting and make it a much nicer place. But a lot of people said, "Oh, that's grand in the summer. What about?" Well, yeah, actually, no. In the winter, people are doing the same. And there's also scheme trials about just things that have gone on for a long time unaddressed, like a lot of pinch points where the footpath just ends, but we still have 2 lanes of traffic. Putting in some, scheme trials on a temporary light so that we can at least get the kids across the bridge. And this one in Malahide is one of my favorites. This is the before, this is the after. I took this picture just when I was there a couple of weeks ago. It's amazing to see. If you get a chance, go to St. Lawrence O'Toole's in Malahide and just watch how quiet the streets are and how everyone floods them at like 2:30, 2:45, 15 minutes, everyone getting together, and then it just disappears again. And even the council don't really know what's happened to the traffic. People are just walking that extra distance, like, and they're really enjoying it. When this granddad said he's been collecting from the school over a couple of generations, and he's never enjoyed the time more because he's just part of the community now and can talk to people. So yeah, I'll take Q&As later, but the Safe Routes to School design guide is on the NTA website, and the more about the Safe Routes to School program, there's a link there to the Green Schools program. So yeah, just thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Finola. Yeah, clearly a lot happening and a lot more in the pipeline. So it's really exciting to see that, and the positive results from people coming up to you. It's fantastic to see that.
Great.
Yeah, so we'll come back to Q&As in a few minutes after our final speaker, who is Sarah Togher. So Sarah, over to you. You're on mute, I think, Sarah.
Sorry about that.
Great.
So you can see my presentation.
I can, yeah, that's great.
Okay, so I'm thanks, Paraic, for the invitation to be part of this event, and it's nice to get an opportunity to promote the work we're doing here in Mayo. This was my presentation. I'm going to give some background on the company and provide an overview of the services, an update on kind of our role with Connecting Ireland and our plans for the future. So Mayo Community Transport, we operate under the trading name of TFI Local Link Mayo, and we're a registered charity operation as a social enterprise. The company currently has 7 voluntary directors representing the local authority and the community and voluntary sector. And their role primarily is governance, oversight, and ensuring that we meet our contractual obligations. And I suppose the employment of staff as well comes into that, as well as shaping the strategic direction of the company. And at present, we have a small team, 4 full-time and 1 part-time staff member. Okay, so just in relation to the rural transport program, it was launched in 2007, and it followed on from the pilot rural transport initiative. And at the time, it was managed by Pobble, and the program had a specific focus on responding to rural isolation and enhancing mobility, accessibility, and community participation, particularly for those at risk of social exclusion. And following on from a value for money review in 2013, the program was restructured, and the responsibility moved from Pobble to the National Transport Authority. And the aim of that was to bring the community transport into the public transport network. So in the early days here in Mayo, we were managed by a partnership company, and then following the restructure, the separate company then took the responsibility. So we're one of 15 local links nationally, and we operate under the Local Link brand, and we're known as TCU's Transport Coordination Units. So in 2021, we launched our first strategy for the company, and it was delayed due to COVID. But the purpose of that was to conduct a review of the company and develop a workable plan. And it was based on desk research and a series of consultation events, and also an internal review. And I suppose that set our vision, which was to create a community where access to transport is available for all, to improve quality of life for all who live and work and socialise in the county. And the main target there was to increase the public transport journeys over the lifetime of the plan. So our current services are, we have door-to-door bus services, they're route-based services the DRT type service, where the added benefit is that they can pick up people at their own homes. We have one rural regular service that operates between Balmullet and Castlebar, and the villages in between, and it runs 7 days a week, 3 times a day. We also have a community car that is accessible community transport, and we're hoping to expand to 2 further community car projects in 2023. We have a contract with HSE to provide transport for adults attending disability, mental health and older people services in Ballina and Castlebar. So they're transported from kind of outlying rural areas and towns and bring, into the main towns where the services are provided. We also have a contract with Mayo University Hospital for renal transport. And we're currently working with the NTA to deliver transport for Ukrainian refugees. So there's a number of services available, which would be like emergency transport, people on arrival, one soft transport for community integration, and then there are shuttle services where there's unmet transport needs or transport deficits. We also have a contract with the Department of Community and Rural Development for managing a ferry service contract at Inishpigil Island. And there's also a connecting road transport service bringing people to Ballycroy, Achill and to Balmullet. And then in addition, we also have like ad hoc requests to organise transport for the community and voluntary sector, and that's done on a case by case or request basis. So just, I suppose just to give an idea, overall, we have 126 weekly services, over 1,200 weekly passengers. We have 120 registered vehicles, but we don't own our own fleet. So we use public procurement to secure the transport services through private operators who have road transport operator licenses. So at the moment we'd have over 120 vehicles registered, and they vary from 4 to 52 seat vehicles. And we have over 170 professional drivers fully registered. So that means they're guarded vetted, they've done their mandatory training that's required as well. And then 80% of the fleet are fully accessible. And as we go through the procurement process, that we hope that in the next procurement that it will increase our accessible vehicles to 100%. This gives an idea of the spread of routes in Mayo under our public transport network. They would be the NTA funded services. We have 53 services there. This is the HSE services that we would have. They run Monday to Friday. And there's over 30 of those going into Ballina and Castlebar. We also have the renal routes that I mentioned, and we have 49 of those. And just, I suppose, in terms of Connecting Ireland, the Rural Mobility Plan developed by the NTA. So the aim is to improve rural areas by providing better connection between the towns and villages by linking the enhanced networks with the onward travel for rail and bus services. So on this slide, you see both the existing network and the proposed improvements that will come about during the term of Connecting Ireland. This information is available on the NTA website, and it's available on a county by county basis. The proposed networks are policy driven, so they're aligned to Project Ireland 2024 and also to the National Sustainable Mobility Policy 2022 to 2025. They're also aligned to CSO data and the local authority plans. And that would include, active travel plans. So just in terms of how this benefited Mayo, there's been a number of improvements made with bus airing services and our own regular service So, the service there has increased to 7-day service 3 times a day. But these improvements have increased connectivity between Ballina, Castlebar, Balmullet and Westport. And our new timetable has also allowed for an interchange at Bulrani. And that has created a connection from Balmullet to Westport and Ackle to Castlebar. So there's the interchange option allows a greater connectivity or choice of travel for passengers. Just in terms of our own strategy, we have over 30 actions identified in the strategy. And I suppose just listening to Fatemeh, I suppose it makes me think about how archaic some of our systems are. But we I suppose in terms of the innovation, we are rolling out a driver app that's been developed by the NTA, but also on the regular services, we now are including the rural regular services on the TFI Go app, where people can pre-book their services online, and also we'll have LEAP LEAP cards available on services as well. So I suppose the overall actions, including the work of Connecting Ireland, are aimed at providing comfortable and affordable journeys and promoting and encouraging the shift from car dependency in rural areas, and I suppose supporting the active travel agenda. So I suppose in terms of challenges, there's a lot of challenges for us as the TCU. The county, it's the 3rd largest county, and there's long distances to travel, and the size and the features, give rise to access difficulties. So, in some cases, a smaller vehicle is more efficient, but then, that in turn causes capacity challenges. We also, I suppose, with sparsely populated areas, it's hard sometimes to justify developing new services, because you're concerned that they will be underused. And then in terms of the structure and funding, the challenge for us is that the structure of the TCU, the system that we operate on, was set up in a framework for community transport, where the average services were weekly. So 20 years later, our requirements have changed in terms of health and safety, operational models and, growth. And the funding we have hasn't reflected the changes. So, so the example would be that for next year, our contract concludes in March, and we still don't know about our funding beyond that date. So it does make it difficult to operate within the current structure. I suppose just in terms of our stakeholders, like we would work extremely closely with a number of key partners. For example, the funding bodies such as the NTA, the HSE and the CELTA group, but also we would work closely with the local authority in relation to developing services and the delivery of services. I suppose we wouldn't be able to achieve the outcomes without the support and commitment of the wider stakeholders that we work with. So just briefly finish up with a small video it's a clip of some footage that we recently took of our passengers speaking about what local link means to them.
If it wasn't for Local Link, I wouldn't be able to get to university, so I wouldn't be able to do my degree. So without it, I wouldn't be able to do my degree. I just have no other options to get here, no other travel options.
Well, it means I can get my shopping done. I bring my wheelie along, and it's very convenient. We get dropped outside of Tesco and picked up again. And we have the right amount of time to get, and also Sometimes I come for an appointment, you know, dental or otherwise.
Well, it means a lot because I don't drive. And it's a getaway too, just to get away from Achill for a few hours. As you can see, I had to get my week shopping.
It means for somebody that's in their 70s, I can get places. I don't have to sit at home alone, and I can go places wherever I want to go, travel around the country, a great service.
Well, when I'm out and about, apart from the connectivity, I meet people who travel regularly on the trip. It's, I think for some of the people that I meet, it's a way of kind of social inclusion, because social isolation is kind of it's at an all-time high in Ireland, and a lot more needs to be done in that regard.
If you were going to a dental appointment or hospital appointment, they would leave you right outside the door, and the drivers are very friendly and helpful.
We're traveling by a backpack, so we're traveling all around Ireland just by bus and train. So yeah, it's the best connection to Ballycroy from here.
And I think it's also an environmental decision, because it's much better than going on your own car to use a bus that is going anyway.
Well, it allows me to get transport to the major hubs, Castlebar perhaps, even Belmullet is, and Achill.
It's very important because there's lots of people, not just myself, but lots of people who are no longer able to drive, or not, just don't feel comfortable driving as they get older, and this keeps us in touch with, able to go and be independent and do our own shopping and get to the banks and supermarkets and etc. and have a coffee now and again as well.
So that's a few passengers letting us know what they think. So I'm happy to take questions, and if anybody wants to further information.
Thank you very much, Sarah.